This episode will be foundational about beliefs, all about what beliefs are, where they come from, how we develop them, why we have them, how long they stick around for, what determines that, and how we can change them. This is the essence of this video, how you can change the habit of being the old you and walk into the path of fulfilling your pure potential, which is what you really have. So what beliefs are? I'm gonna dive in. Beliefs are like software that has been programmed into your mind, and I call it software specifically because it's something that can be changed. It can be changed, and it can be changed even rather easy as opposed to what many people think. So you have been recorded this software in childhood, and the development of a child is that it has a sense of needing to be accepted because it's dependent on its parents, on its caregivers. So you as a child couldn't go find a job and pay your own bills and all that stuff. You had to depend for survival on your parents. Because you're so dependent on your caregivers, you need to adjust your behavior so that you are accepted in that group and you are taken care of in whatever way they get to take care of you. And therefore, beliefs that you have, that you programmed yourself and have been programmed with, serve you as a software that drives those behaviors and actions. So actually the beliefs that you have developed, no matter how limiting they are, they serve one thing. They help you survive in childhood. Mostly. We very rarely need them past childhood. But let's stay to the topic of still being a child for a moment. When you are a child growing up in maybe a very critical household, maybe one of your parents is very critical and you had to develop, by whatever means you have developed this, a belief that you are not good enough. They always criticize you. So the belief that you have developed through their own saying that you're not good enough, or indication of their behavior and constantly shaking their heads or telling you to do things in a different way, well, that tells you that you always have to strive and do things harder. You have to mold your behavior in such a way that would please that parent, and for a moment will give you some peace, some rest, some relief. So that belief serves in that moment so that you can react to their needs. Unfortunately, this is how it happens, but this is the reality. We have to adjust our behavior to suit their expectations of ours. So they give us care, they give us shelter, they take care of us. This is our primary need as children to survive. And I believe as people evolutionarily change and they work through their beliefs as a collective, maybe the children wouldn't have to develop those limiting beliefs because they would know they would be always safe and always loved and always taken care of. But for the time being, as we are still living in a very polarized and very emotionally unintelligent societies where people have no idea what to do with their emotions and they place their need to take care of their emotions onto a small child, for that long we will still have to be developing those beliefs. So you have developed a number of beliefs of that kind. I'm unlovable, so you have to make yourself more pleasing. Maybe you have to make yourself, your behavior in such way that it will please one of the people that give you that impression. So you've developed a number of beliefs. in your childhood. Now, I specifically framed it in that way that they serve you for survival. And that already builds into the next part that I want to speak about. We have our limiting beliefs, limiting programs, limiting narratives for as long as we need to think we need them for survival. And I want to pause and repeat. You only need your belief as long as you think you need it for survival. Now, very rarely past childhood, you would need to carry on with that limiting belief. Because as you grow as an adult, you develop independence that allows you to take care of yourself. It's as simple as that. You no longer need to mold yourself so much as you did as a child. Now, there are different expectations coming from society, but by becoming authentic, you get to choose environments in which you engage and live in and become active as an adult that will suit more into developing and nurturing the most positive beliefs, the ones that are true. Okay, so you've developed beliefs that are limiting, the programs that tell you what you should think, how you should behave in order to be accepted. Now, I want to throw it in here that those limiting beliefs, they're developed, they're borrowed, they're programmed, they're not true. They're simply programs that adjust your thinking and feeling and behaviors in order to serve a purpose. They are completely untrue. I want to really emphasize this. You were not born with a belief of being unlovable. You were born perfectly trusting, perfectly playful, perfectly surrendering to this environment until you have learned more about the needs and expectations of adults, where you decided unconsciously to mold your behavior. And, that was wise, for as long as we need to depend on someone, that long we will need to keep on serving that purpose. Now, past childhood, you no longer need those beliefs most of the times. As you grow independence, you become dependent on yourself. You don't have to mold your behavior. You don't have to mold your thoughts and adjust your habits as much for someone to take care of you, right? So really get that in your mind, that as you become physically independent as an adult, you no longer need those beliefs most of the times. Now, there are different environments such as workplace or some maybe partnerships or friendships that still propel some sort of behaviors and limiting beliefs that we've developed because it suits them. It suits them. It speaks nothing about you, but it suits them that you keep on behaving and thinking about yourself and your place to be, as in to behave and have habits of fulfilling their expectations. As long as you don't fall into environments that require for you to fulfill the prophecy of those beliefs and keep adjusting your behaviors to suit them, you no longer need those beliefs. But like I just said, people want for you to care for their needs. And you might be choosing a job where you keep repeating the old patterns, keep overextending yourself, keep reassuring people, keep proving yourself, keep doing this and that. And this is often what various work environments require of you to keep you insecure, keep you on your toes, so that they have leverage over you. They want you to have a low self-esteem most of the time, maybe unconsciously, but this is how the system works, so that you stretch yourself more and give more of yourself to that workplace or that boss or that environment, where you sacrifice more of your time, more of your energy to serve the company that you're working for. It has, again, nothing to do with you. It's not about you, that you're unlovable, that you are undeserving, that you are unworthy. It's all about their needs. And I will be weaving this in through this video so that the repetition of this really digs deep into your mind. Just as your parents, when they left you feeling unlovable and not good enough, it was never about you. It was always about serving their needs. It was all about molding your behavior so that they are feeling better. Okay? That they are feeling better as a parent, that they are feeling better amongst their friends, that they can show off a perfectly obedient child or whatever. It's always about the other people. And now that you are adult, you get to take care of your needs. You get to put a shelter over your head. You get to choose a workplace, or you may very well start your own work for yourself. Now that you've carried on the old beliefs, they might be holding you back into believing that maybe you actually can't start a company for yourself because people will not pay you, because you're not good enough. You're never good enough, so no matter what you do, you won't convince them. No matter how much you mold your behavior, there will still be that empty hole as your parents had, to ask for more, ask for more, ask for more, and never give you the proper reward for what you're giving. That may leave you hesitant to start your own company, or that may leave you hesitant to live authentically, because as you were as a child was never enough. You always had to adjust and change your behavior, change your thoughts that would suit the belief, and then change your behavior. This is how it works. Beliefs, they determine the thoughts determine the behavior. And the behavior creates a habit. And the habit becomes what you are. Living is becoming yourself into living that life. The life of the software that you were programmed with. Now, when you are ready to shed some of your limiting beliefs, you must remember what I just said, some of the things I mentioned. Beliefs serve you for survival, okay? They are lies. They're just softwares. You can very likely change all of them. You just have to know how to spot them. So the very good entry place to working on your beliefs is observe the negative emotions when they show up. Emotions are an indicator that you are out of alignment from living your authentic self. I speak about it in detail in my other video. You can watch this, how negative emotions indicate you're not authentic to yourself, you're not living your true, meaning you are living out of the old program. You are creating something through your behavior, through your thoughts, through your choices that is not aligned for your fullest potential, that is never going to fulfill you. You're doing something that is not serving you, maybe you're doing something that serves others. You're still acting, thinking, and behaving out of the need for survival that no longer is true or relevant at this stage of your life. So the negative emotions is the entry place to start working on beliefs. Whenever you experience a so-called negative emotion, you may know for a fact that this is the time to observe what you're thinking, why you're thinking this, and just let yourself be lifted out of the emotions. We get so swept in emotions and we get so hijacked. I also speak about it in my other video, how we get on an emotional roller coaster and how we get used by our negative emotions instead of using them. What happens when you have a negative emotion? It's a survival instinct. When you really are not threatened, like your life is not being threatened, then it means it's probably untrue. Okay, I'm being serious right now. The indication of a negative emotions is something that is fight or flight. Most of the times it serves you to fear some circumstances or try to avoid a situation, because at the very foundational level of all the limiting beliefs is the fear of survival, is the fear of dying, literally. So how I work with negative beliefs with my client is through a few simple steps. You notice as an entry point you have a negative emotion. Negative emotion, like I said, is an indicator you have an active, limiting, or negative belief, whatever you call it. It's an old program. This is the place of choice. Do I want to keep choosing the old path of survival and simply rehash the old scenarios that have not been clearly serving me? Or do I want to choose my truth, my authentic path toward fulfillment and discovering new life moment by moment, how it plays out as I live according to my truth? Now, I hope you're choosing this path because this is where I'm going with this video. If you're choosing that path, you want to settle into your body first. The old path, notice then when you have negative emotion, there's always a sense of urgency to act. There is always a sense of urgency to adjust your behavior, to do something, to cope, to manage. As you did as a child, you had to change and mold all the time, very fast. That was your belief to survive. The urgency comes from the need of survival. So as you remember that and try to settle amongst this urgency, you want to ignore that urgency for a moment and know where it comes from the old need to survive. Now you're perfectly safe. No one is trying to kill you. No one is taking away your home just yet. And you're just wanting to deal with that negative belief. What you want to do at this moment is to settle into your body. Away from your head is the best. Through a couple of deep breaths, that's enough. Just enough so that you settle physically, become almost physically more grounded, like you become heavier through breathing in. And that brings a little bit more clarity that you can challenge the thoughts. Like I said, you've got beliefs. On top of the beliefs, you've got thoughts, and then there are behaviors and habits and blah, blah, blah. So now that you've settled, you want to ask yourself, what am I really thinking amidst that emotional activation? What is really going through my mind? Just pick up your narrative from all that mess, from all that chaos. Okay, Now that you've settled, you can see, okay, yeah, I'm thinking that my partner is really angry at me, and I think they will dump me because they're so angry at me. I must have done something wrong, and they just really hate me right now, and that's the end. They're probably going to dump me. That could be one of the situation. And now that you notice the narrative, you get to challenge it. Why am I thinking that this is what's happening? Okay, maybe they are very angry, maybe they said something that they are disappointed with me, maybe we are having an argument, maybe they are clearly upset. Okay, and as the old beliefs plays in through probably the lens of fearing rejection. Now, what could be a negative belief? What am I thinking about myself? It's always about you. What am I thinking about myself? What does this situation tell me about myself? That could be the limiting belief. Okay, clearly the limiting belief here is that I'm unlovable, that I'm not good enough, perhaps, that no matter what I do is not good enough. You have picked up your limiting belief that plays out in this moment. This person's behavior doesn't determine who you are. It cannot determine that you are worthy or good enough. All it speaks about the dynamic that's going on right now, about their needs not being fulfilled, about them being upset, right? They have their upsetness going on through their own lens, through their own filters. They have their own emotional activation, and they project a lot of that on you. Maybe their need is for you to act in a certain way. Now that you fished out this negative, limiting belief from all that chaos and mess of emotions, thoughts, and urgency, and you can call it by a name. I have a belief that I'm unlovable. I have a belief that I'm not good enough. You can challenge it. You can look at it with magnifying glass and challenge it, because all you need is to make up your mind that you no longer need it. People think I need to feel something when I'm changing the negative belief into positive. It's actually untrue. All you have to do is to acknowledge that that was programmed, know where it comes from, that it served its purpose, now you no longer need it, and now you need to make up your mind about what you can do. And more so, looking at the limitation of the belief into what it tells you to do. Now you might have to have an impression from this negative belief, the limitation that tells you I should adjust my behavior to please that person, to please my partner. Remember, the old belief tells you that you need to do something about yourself to survive, right? Now, what would happen if you didn't please your partner? If you chose to act authentically and you would say, hold on, now you're yelling at me, now you're angry at me, and you're clearly very activated, but I get to say my situation as well. Let's work this out. Instead of maybe pleasing, apologizing, pleading, maybe, sacrificing yourself, giving yourself away, but just standing up for yourself and saying, hold on, let's talk through this as adults. Be more authentic way of behaving, one of the options. And asking yourself as an adult, if I chose this authentic path, would I still survive? Some people can still hold a belief as adults that they would not survive if the partner would leave them. And this is propelling the belief of a child. If you really believe that the other person would leave you and you would die, then you are acting like a child. It may feel that way because in the state of emotional activation, all the old beliefs from childhood are kicking in. The survival instincts of a child are kicking in. But you are no longer a child. If you can say positively as an adult that by choosing the authentic, more aligned action, choice, thought, behavior in that dynamic would not make you die, then you can very easily now make up your mind about leaving behind that limiting belief that tells you otherwise. This is all down to this. And more so, you might be seeking for evidence in the future through small behaviors, through small actions to collect evidence how choosing the new thought, the bigger thought than your emotions were, the bigger thought that your old belief and acting on it would build up evidence, and a different feedback loop would start happening. What I call an upward spiral. When you have a new thought, when you decide, I'm going to choose to look at this situation differently. I'm going to assume that this partner is going to see me as my true self and accept me. And I will act in accordance. And maybe if you see them receiving you actually well, then you have built some evidence. And if they actually do reject you, again, it doesn't speak anything about you. All it speaks is about them. It's about them not being to honor your authenticity. It's about them wanting constantly for you to please them and sacrifice yourself. You don't want to live in that relationship anyway. That keeps you stuck and working from your old limiting beliefs as a child. Because you no longer are desperate for survival. You no longer need to work for survival. It has nothing to do with you. You get to be your own authentic self, living your true potential. So choose better thoughts, choose new behavior. If you have to behave, sometimes all you have to do is to choose new thought and decide not to do anything, because the urgency of the old beliefs always makes us and asks of us to do something, whereas in adult life we get to often be just patient and just observe how the situation evolves in itself, and then respond when we need to, with clear mind, authentically. So as you experience the negative emotion, this is most likely an indication that you're back into the active old program. Negative emotions are the fight for survival. It's the nervous system activation, fight or flight, okay? And if you are not really in this moment threatened, if your life is not being threatened for survival, then you're most likely having activated negative belief from your childhood, or whenever you developed it, mostly in childhood, when you had to mold something about your thoughts or behavior, your actions to survive. And this is such a key thing, because at the bottom level of all your limiting beliefs from childhood, it was the need for survival, like physical survival. Feeling unlovable, the belief of being unlovable served you to mold your behavior to become lovable so that they would accept you, they would put the roof over your head, and there you would survive. Feeling rejected by a parent and a caregiver that you're totally dependent on is a physical threat for your survival. The same goes for not being good enough. You can imagine how that thread goes. If you're not good enough, they're not accepting you, then you might lose the acceptance of them, and then you might die on your own, because what a small child can do on their own, right? So you see, all the negative beliefs are based on the need for survival, and you can see how the limiting beliefs that you have carried on from your childhood all the way to your adulthood, they kind of serve you survival, but they're fake. They don't make sense. They imply that you're dependent on this one thing. So if that's a workplace that you get your negative emotions activated in, then the underlying unconscious belief could be, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to fulfill the expectations if I don't mold myself, if I don't adjust the behavior in such a way that pleases them, then I will lose a job, and then I will not have means to live, and I will die, right? So it all comes back to survival. But you are in the situation where even the worst comes to worst. If you lose this job, you can get another one, right? You're not so dependent on this as you were on the care of your parents, of your primary caregivers, on this job. You can let the situation develop in so many different ways without compromising your authenticity so much that you lose yourself to a job because you fear surviving, you fear death, really. You see how extreme the negative emotions are in throwing us back into the old programs, that they're led from a point of view of a child. Literally, when you have a negative emotions, which means you have an active negative beliefs, you are looking at the world through a lens of a child. Your filter and the whole view of the world right now, when you have this active, is that of a small child that can't cope with the world in front of it. And I gave you a story in my previous video how not ever challenging these old thoughts can leave you living a life of absolute misery. Because if you constantly live in negative emotions, meaning you are constantly feeling the program of negative beliefs, then you're constantly filtering the world and getting the feedback from the world that reassures you that you are completely worthless, that you are completely unlovable, that you are completely incapable of taking care of yourself because everyone else is out there to get you. And if you are living through that frame of mind, through that lens, through a filter of the limiting belief, it's just a filter that colors everything in such a way that really you believe this, that really you believe it's true. And the life of such person is limited. At the very best, is limited. It's sad, it's full of anger, it's full of frustration, it's full of disappointment, it's full of unfulfilled wishes, it's full of jealousy, looking at other people's lives. It's really a sad, miserable life to lead if you're not challenging your thoughts and beliefs that occur during the time of an emotional activation, negative emotional activation. I really wanted to throw in all these things. I know it could be complicated to get all that in, so maybe you might want to watch this again. But it's really how that works. Negative beliefs are filters that serve survival. Negative emotions are the active state when we perceive the reality, the world through that lens. Me holding onto that old beliefs is me playing small, is me serving someone and being dependent on their approval. But you're no longer a child. This is an inner child activation. All the negative emotions are inner child activations, and all they want is to be heard. But you are the parent of yourself right now. You are an adult. You want to take care of yourself and reassure yourself you're going to make it. You're going to survive. When you become older, now when you grow up, you get to choose environments. You get to choose where you live. You get to choose who you hang out with. You get to choose your workplace. But it goes both ways. That's the trap. When you're a child, it's the environment that shapes the belief. You don't have enough consciousness. And most of adults, they still don't have enough consciousness. That's why we're growing it. So that you know negative beliefs for what they are. They served as programs in those old environments. Whenever you change an environment or make any new choice in your life, you get to choose bigger than the old belief. We're not supposed to act out from those old beliefs and act out of the negative emotions that create urgency to mold ourselves in old ways for survival. We get to choose from the higher consciousness level based on trust, not based on fear, based on love, based on what we want to find as fulfillment, based on what we desire really, based on our inner truth and authenticity. Now, these choices often feel scary because they often will feel like, oh my God, I'm afraid I will not find a job. Because if I choose a new job based on trust, based on my real passion, then I have not developed all the skills as I developed for all these years, how to create that life, you know, and I'm afraid that I will not survive. But that's the mistake. You're an adult now. And you can choose all the time. We make hundreds of choices. They're micro choices, micro decision every day. The choices of your thoughts, the choices of your beliefs, even if you keep on choosing the same belief, with every new interaction, with every new thought, with every new action, tiny actions. What are you reading? What are you looking at? Who are you talking with? What are you engaging with? Are you looking at your phone? Are you reading a book? Tons of choices. And each time, if you live from the old belief, you keep choosing the old belief out of survival and familiarity of this choice. It just feels like it's easy because you've rewired this. You're wired this in because of the years and years of practice. Now, that doesn't mean this is all that there is. It just means you've developed a really strong habit. That's why I call it software, because a software, what it does, it creates a filter and actions, a behavior, actions, something from the standpoint of what is programmed to do, right? So you are programmed for survival in that way or another, with all the different elements of how you were brought up in all the situations you had to react to and mold yourself into, and you kind of refined this program to suit that environment. Now, I know you have all the ability to deal with the choices in a new way. Take those tiny risks in a new way. And the old belief only will serve you for as long as you keep choosing in the old ways. So you see how you're extending by your own choice the need to keep that limiting belief by making old choices, like the choices from the familiar. I'm going to use the example of job again. So you choose the same job instead of following a new career path because it feels familiar, it feels safer, it feels like maybe you don't like it, maybe it's not fulfilling, but it pays the bill. See, you can see how the survival thinking and justification comes in place instead of following your passion, perhaps. Now, if you keep choosing this, then you are affirming the need for that old belief. And it's like the action and belief and the thoughts that come in, they serve as the loop of feedback. Then the life offers you exactly what you've put out. So the world, the reality that we create is based on your belief, based on your micro choices, your micro decisions. Whatever you choose in any moment is how you shape your reality, because you get to choose through addressing your thoughts whenever the negative emotion comes, and you get to choose what kind of belief am I going to follow? What kind of, am I going to follow a program of a small child that is dependent on its parents? Am I going to act out of this? Well, believe it or not, I would say probably 99% of people on this planet act constantly as big children because they are not conscious of their emotions. They have no idea about how to change their beliefs, how to work with these ideas. And all they do, they act to seek relief of the negative emotion through behaving for survival, through acting towards survival, through constantly believing they are in a threat all the time. How these behaviors look like? When you think you're in threat, you're going to be maybe offending people, maybe you're going to manipulate people, maybe you're going to coerce people, maybe you're going to even please people. Is also a coercion because of the need for survival, is acting out of threat. It's just a different coping mechanism, it's just a different behavior, but it stems also from need to survive. So people act out on emotions all the time. We are living in the world run and organized and managed by children in adult bodies. I'm going to give you a few examples that you can observe probably in your life. So one story I got given by a close relative of mine, how she told me in her workplace they were moving the offices and they were giving away all the decoration that were the office was equipped in, the plants, especially the plants was the big subject. And the employees, they knew that they were going to give away the plants. So my cousin told me about this woman who reserved like 15 huge plants and came with two cars. She came with her car and another person driving another car to fill it up with all the plants, and she reserved them, right? So there is this scarcity, the survival mindset. And, you know, there is no such thing as reserving plants. People could just come in and take it, right? But imagine as a child who is so afraid for their toys to be taken or some of their possessions, because they act out as children from that developmental stage, that they're constantly threatened for survival. It's like, someone will take my food, someone will take my shelter. It's all about surviving. And the ideas of a child are, you know, kind of very dramatic in that sense. And then that adult woman that decided she's going to take 15 plants, and any person who came near any of the 15 plants, she would yell at them. She would almost go as far as beating them. It was a work colleague of them, and it was a professional environment. And her behavior was so out of place because of her emotional activation, which clearly was based on that survival belief of old mindset of thinking as a child, threatened. And she was really convinced it was her place and that she could behave that way. So there is this filter that acts as a sort of possession. You know, you become possessed when you have negative emotions, which means you have negative beliefs activated. So this is one of the situations. And I'm sure during the pandemic, you've observed all kind of behaviors based on that scarcity mindset and fear of survival. None of which was coming from clear adult mind of sitting down and let's think what we can do now. But they were acting out, reacting to some news, to some, you know, emotions. I'm going to just give you one or two more examples that you can see how we are, if we act out from emotions, if we don't inspect our beliefs, we act out as children in adult bodies. A lot of narcissists, like there is so much people trying to heal the abuse of narcissism from their lives. And narcissism is a great example of a child being locked in an adult body. These are literally 2-year-olds, because this is more or less the developmental stage, the emotional stage that they're locked in, constantly threatened to survive and acting out of this. Their view on reality is so skewed that they seek with suspicion, constant suspicion, people that would find them out, that would reveal who they really are, that would confront them. Because these narcissists, they really don't believe they can meet their own needs. So they have to coerce, manipulate, control, bully people in their life into meeting their needs for care, for reassurance, for love, for giving them compliments, for giving them all sorts of things, taking care of them physically, sexually, because these people believe they are entitled, like a tiny child who cannot discuss like an adult their needs and negotiate in a relationship. They think they have to control by force another person. So I'm sure you have met a person that has been manipulative, that maybe was abusive through their behavior, through their verbal abuse, was trying to make you feel inferior so that you would please them by your behavior. See, these are all very inner child activations running through a whole of personality for their whole life. And unfortunately, in the times when someone have developed it so much as into this being, their personality is way harder. But each of us, if you are watching this video, you are probably way more aware and have access to some sort of self-reflection that you can inspect your behaviors and you are willing to change them. This is the most important difference between you and people who want to stay in that old belief and want others to serve them. But they will never be fulfilled. They will never be happy. They will always live in that deep sense of shame, in inferiority. They will feel disconnected from their source and life energy because they have to seek other people to prop them up. They are seeking from that power from the outside means. And I explain everything about inner power, how people prop themselves up with people, with status, with objects, just to feel more secure, just to feel more important, just to feel more accepted. So this is all happening because of the old beliefs of a child, most likely. And yes, we do develop some negative beliefs during our lifetime, but it's very rare that they happen. It's mostly rehashing and reaffirming the childish programs, the programs from childhood. Most of my videos I keep saying and emphasizing, and I won't stop saying about this, how choices and being aware of your thoughts and your actions is the key. And here in the work on beliefs is as well. Putting yourself into environments, into conditions that you create, assuming what's good for you, and acting from your joy, like knowing this would be really good, even if you don't know yet how that's going to play out, but you feel it. You feel that's exactly what you want. This is going to bring you evidence that this is the right thing for you, not acting out of fear. You have to take those leaps of faith. I believe this is what they call quantum leaps. You leap into new belief where you will see the evidence. But you have to assume first that it will work. Just because you feel it's good for you, you just feel it in your guts, that you know it will be so nourishing, so fulfilling. And even if you don't know, especially if you don't know, the bigger the unknown, the bigger the leap into changing the old belief, changing your old self, because you land in the new parallel life to the old life that you have, where you have new potentialities. When you've leaped, when you've made a choice that is with unknown consequences, you are living your life. You are literally fulfilling yourself because you took it from the right intention, from the intention of trust and love. Regardless that you didn't have any certainty. Certainty is only acting from survival. It never actually brings guarantees. But because it's the old, well-trained behavior, while you have developed all the coping mechanisms, this is where certainty comes from. You don't want to move towards certainty. Moving towards bigger choices, better life, it can feel like you're kind of in a free fall sometimes. It's what I call surrender to life. It's where you feel like you're challenged and challenging yourself all the time, but you're choosing based on faith. That's why the word belief is so amazing. You are putting yourself into conditions, you're choosing something uncertain based on a great idea, and you leap in there and you see, yes, that was the right thing, and that will always be the right thing. Always will be the right thing, no matter how it looks like yet, because the world might have to reorganize itself. Like I said, you might have to prune some old, I don't know, ideas or some old structures, physical structures from your life. But that state of free fall, what I call, is because you still don't know how it's going to evolve. You still don't know if the world will catch you. But it always will. When you act out of your joy, when you act from your trust and love, you will always be met halfway through by the world. This is what I can tell you for a fact, because I have made a lot of those risky leaps in my life, and they always moved me on to the higher plane of being a completely different person. And if you make those choices frequently, you'll see how your evolution as a human being is changing radically, speedily, and how your reality is changing. This is what we call the upgrade of the reality. You literally move yourself to the higher states of being every single time you make that daring choice. This is how it works. You don't work from survival, from the certainty that is never bringing guarantees anywhere, just the guarantee of being in the same misery, but acting from the new ways, leaping into uncertainty, leaping into the new risky but delightful and feeling a good thing that, yes, you have a bit of fear of going there. But in the end, it's what serves you, because otherwise you wouldn't have that inclination in you to do it. It's what your inner knowing tells you. It's what your guiding source is telling you. It always tells us through emotions that we are in the place of choice. Either you're going to the old way by survival, by what you think is certain, or you're going to the new way that is uncertain, but it's thrilling. There is something that makes you want to go there. And most people just kind of withdraw and like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm afraid it probably is not right. And you justify all the old ways. You justify because you want to stay in the old way. And the old belief only serve you for as long as you keep choosing the old environment. If you don't dare to put yourself in the new conditions where you see the evidence of your new being, you be yourself in present, all the time in present, you make new choices. Be living, you be yourself into living all the time. And I want you to get out of this video, if that's the one thing, all the time through your day, you be yourself into living through your thoughts and through your choices. The more you are aware of what you're thinking and what you're believing, and if you're choosing to believe the old way and acting from that, this is what you're choosing. And I want you to be very, very aware, so that next time you have the choice, you at least give yourself that chance. What am I going to choose? Am I going to stay in the old, or am I going to the new? This time that we live in is a huge time of bigger polarization than ever I've known. It's when people really have to choose which path they're going, because I'm seeing, in the way I observe energy and consciousness, I see there's more and more polarization. So if people keep choosing this because of such a speed in the changes in the energy that we're going through right now, and they have to do with the way our earth is upgrading and in the way how our bodies are upgrading. And this is really a place of choice, and you can even make that intention today when you've watched this video. Am I going to be choosing that new path of light, love, and better way of being and manifesting what I want in my life? Or do I want to hang out with all the people that are living a life of misery and keep rehashing these old ways? Because if you make that one intention, that will guide you in the small choices throughout the day. I hope this has been useful. I've given you a lot of what I know about beliefs here. There is more than I could fit in hours and hours of videos on this subject, but this is way more than enough that you need to change your beliefs today, and knowing how paramount this is for your life. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.